I'm a nature photographer, and I call my work the art of biophilia. So biophilia, what that means, the word bio is life, and philia is love of. So biophilia is love of life, and it's an idea put forth by sociobiologist E.O. Wilson, who argues that we have, as humans, an innate affinity for life, for living things, and that we have a kinship that we recognize. That's the kind of thing I'm trying to capture here, is our innate connection with the natural world. And I think that's particularly important because we're at a time when we are fairly disconnected from the natural world. I'm looking at subjects that are not typically nature photography subjects. Most nature photographers are photographing mammals, and that's wonderful. There are a lot of mammals to admire, but mammals are the minority in the biosphere. There's only about 4,500 of us, species of mammals. And in contrast, there are millions, potentially millions of insects, and they've been here a lot longer than mammals, and they've really been at the center of the biosphere for a lot longer. So a lot of my portraits are of insects and birds. Nature wants to be admired. And sometimes nature will put on a show for me, for any of us who are seeking to admire nature. I will ask an animal to offer up its image. There are a lot of photographers who think of it that way. Mary Ellen Mark, who's a humanitarian photographer, she talks about waiting for that moment when a person offers you their image, right? That you're not taking something from them, they're offering it to you, and you're using that for some greater good. And I think the same is true in nature photography. There's a way in which nature wants to be admired. None of these images here are photoshopped, although they appear to be so. A lot of people are surprised that they're not photoshopped. And that's because they tend to cross over into other genres. They tend to look like maybe watercolor paintings or pencil drawings or charcoal drawings. And so how can you do that without Photoshop? You have to be a technician, a craftsperson. You have to know how to use your instrument, right? And what a photographer's instrument is the camera. But really the raw material is light, right? Light is to a photographer what clay is to a ceramicist, right? We're playing with light. That's our medium. So we have to understand light fairly well. So here, these are two images. I'll just explain briefly how I took these. What I'm doing is I'm playing with the different absorptive and reflective capacities of different substances. So a white substance reflects all light. A dark substance like gray-green water absorbs more light, right? So if I make a very narrow lens and I bump up the ISO, and then you can get some really interesting silhouettes, right? You're using the box of the white sky, and you're looking at silhouettes, right? And the shape of things, the outline of the form of things, right? So again, this is an animal that is highly absorptive. It's a black animal, but the fog in the sky is highly reflective. So by stopping down that lens, making a really narrow opening, and knowing something about the different absorptive and reflective capacities of the substances I'm photographing, I can manipulate that in camera in such a way that I never have to touch Photoshop. So what I think of as my mission with my photography, which is a very personal mission, is to, when I'm taking the photograph, to feel a deep sense of reverence myself, to savor the natural world, so that hopefully you as a viewer can also feel a sense of that reverence and that connection with the natural world.